All right, ready to dive into something a lot of you have been asking about. Today, we're tackling expected goals, or XG.
It's definitely become a big talking point in football.
It really has. So we're going to try to break it all down, figure out what it is, how it's changing, how we see the game, what can it actually tell us.
And it's gone from kind of a niche statistic to like a core part of how people talk about football now.
Totally. So for anyone who might be new to this whole thing, let's just start basic. What are expected goals?
So basically, it's about going a bit deeper than just the score line. We're talking about the actual quality of chances in a game. It's all about probability. So instead of Team A had 10 shots, we might say Team A had an XG of 2.5, meaning based on tons of data. A team with those exact chances, they'd be expected to score like 2 or 3 goals.
So it's kind of putting a number on that feeling we get when a team just seems to be wasting good chances, right?
Exactly. It adds that extra layer of analysis.
Hmm?
Think about a penalty kick. Most people know that's a really good chance to score. XG quantifies that. A penalty is usually around 0.75 XG, so statistically it's likely to go in most of the time. Now compare that to a hopeful shot from like halfway down the pitch, which might be 0.02 XG.
Big difference. So how does it actually work, this whole calculation thing? I'm guessing it's pretty complicated.
You're right. It involves some serious number crunching, complex algorithms, mountains of data. We're talking about factoring in shot location, the angle, if it was a header, a volley,
Yeah.
even what kind of pass led to the shot.
Okay, so some serious data wizardry going on here. What are some of those specific data points being fed into these models? And are some models, like, better than others?
That's a great question. So where things get interesting, public models, the ones you might see online or on TV, usually use pretty standard stuff. Distance from goal, angle, was it a header, was it a volley, was it their weaker foot, maybe if it was a counterattack or a set piece. But the advanced models that clubs are using, those are starting to incorporate even more granular data. Player speed and acceleration, the positioning of everyone on the pitch, even things like fatigue levels.
Wow, okay. So are those top secret models inherently more accurate?
Not necessarily. More data isn't always better. It's about how you weight and interpret that data. Some modelers are better at certain types of chances. Some are stronger in other areas. There's a lot of debate and research about which are best, what their limits are. But that might be a deep dive for another day.
You know me too well. Always up for a data rabbit hole. But let's stick with the basics for now. Key things a first-time XG explorer should keep in mind. What are they?
I think one of the most important is that XG isn't about predicting the future perfectly.
Right, if we could do that, we'd all be rich from betting.
Exactly. Football's full of randomness, unpredictable things. That's part of why we love it.
Yeah.
XG helps us understand the probabilities, but it doesn't know everything.
It's like that saying, that's why they play the game.
Exactly. You could have a striker, normally amazing, miss a sitter with like zero point 0.9 XG,
Yeah.
or a keeper having a world-class game making saves that seem impossible.
Okay, so no crystal ball. But what is it useful for then? How can we actually use it to understand football better?
Well, for one, it gives a much more objective way to look at how teams and players are performing. Let's say a team creates lots of high XG chances, but they don't score a lot of goals.
So, racking up shots, not so much on the scoreboard.
Yeah, XG would show that and suggest maybe their finishing needs work or their tactics in the final third need adjusting. On the flip side, a team that doesn't score loads but keeps their opponent's XG super low.
Defensive masters.
Exactly. Maybe they're amazing at positioning, at discipline, making it really hard to create good chances, even if they don't have most of the possession. XG can help us appreciate that.
So it's like having X-ray vision for a match, seeing the tactics, not just the result.
That's a great way to put it. It's about adding a whole new dimension to how we understand and appreciate the game. Remember when stats like possession or pass completion started becoming a big thing? XG's on that level, fundamentally changing how we analyze matches.
And speaking of changing the game, I'm curious about something. With XG becoming more and more commonplace, do you think it will actually start to influence how teams approach the game itself?
It's a fascinating question, and I think it's something we're already starting to see in subtle ways. Now that their attacking output is being measured and analyzed so precisely, will teams become more risk-averse, prioritize those high percentage, high XG chances?
Or will we see teams trying to, like, game the system, finding creative ways to exploit those models, going for those low probability but potentially high reward chances that the numbers might not love? I'm picturing teams just suddenly lining up for long shots, trying to win every throw-in near the opponent's box.
Let's hope it doesn't go that far.
Yeah.
But it is a good point. XG isn't perfect. There will always be people trying to find those loopholes, right? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, this tactical chess match between analytics and what happens on the pitch.
Now, I'm sure some listeners are thinking, okay, this is great for coaches, for analysts, but what about me, just a regular fan watching at home? What's in it for them?
That's a great point. And the good news is, XG isn't some exclusive tool for the elite few anymore. Clubs might have their fancy analytics departments, but XG is everywhere now. Websites, sports news, even during games on TV. It's just part of how we talk about football now.
So it's less about needing a math degree, more about having another tool to analyze a match, maybe impress your friends. Like, see, I told you our striker's been unlucky. His XG is through the roof.
Exactly. But on a serious note, understanding even the basics of XG can make you a more informed fan. You can look beyond the scoreline, appreciate the tactics, the nuances.
Instead of yelling at the TV when a player misses a sitter, we can calmly turn to whoever's nearby and say, well, they underperformed their XG by 1.2 today. Classic case of poor finishing.
Exactly. You can analyze matches differently, understand why your team makes certain substitutions, even have better debates with your friends about who's playing well.
It's like, remember when you finally figured out what offside really meant? Suddenly the game opens up.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's about adding layers to your understanding, appreciating the sport on a deeper level, and who knows, maybe you start making better predictions about matches. Or at least sounding more confident when you do.
Okay, so if we had to boil all of this down, why should we, as fans, care about XG? What's the key takeaway?
Because it's more than just a statistic. It's a tool that can actually make watching football more enjoyable. It's
Yeah.
about understanding the probabilities, those what-ifs, the tactical battles. It's appreciating those amazing moments of skill and even those frustrating near misses in a whole new way.
Beautifully put. Okay, so we've established that XG isn't just some abstract concept for statisticians. It's something that can actually enhance our enjoyment of the game. But I think there's still one big question we need to address. We've talked about how XG can help us analyze past matches in a more nuanced way, but what about its predictive power? Can we actually use this thing to predict the future of football?
The million-dollar question. If only it were that simple. But it would be amazing if we could just plug some numbers into an XG model and have it spit out the score lines for every match. With 100% accuracy, we'd all be retiring early and watching football from our yachts.
Speak for yourself, I'd still be here nerding out over XG data, just with a much better tan.
But in all seriousness, while XG can be a useful tool for getting a sense of how a match might unfold, it's essential to remember that it's not a crystal ball.
Right, because as we've already established, football is a gloriously chaotic sport with more than its fair share of unpredictable twists and turns.
Exactly. There are just too many variables at play. The form of individual players, unexpected injuries, last-minute tactical changes, the weather, even the infamous bounce of the ball. They can all influence the outcome of a match in ways that no model can fully account for.
And that's not even considering those moments of individual brilliance or utter madness that seem to defy all logic and statistical probability, like that time your team's goalkeeper decided to dribble the ball out of the box and ended up gifting the opposition a goal.
I think we all have a few of those memories we try to block out. But you're right, it's those moments of unpredictability, those flashes of human error and genius
Yeah.
that make football so captivating.
So if XG can't tell us exactly what's going to happen, how can we use it to think about the future of the game?
That's a great question. I think one of the most valuable ways to think about XG in a predictive sense is not necessarily about trying to pinpoint exact scores, but rather as a tool for understanding trends, identifying potential over or underperformance, and assessing risk.
So kind of like how weather forecasting isn't about predicting the precise temperature to the decimal point, but rather giving you a general sense of whether you'll need a jacket or sunscreen that day.
Exactly. We can use XG to ask questions like, is this team consistently creating high-quality chances, even if they haven't been converting them to goals, so they might be due for a breakout performance? Or is this team winning despite consistently conceding a high number of XG against them? If so, they might be riding their luck, and we might expect some regression to the mean soon.
So it's less about saying Team A will definitely beat Team B 2-1, and more about saying Team A have been creating significantly better chances than their opponents recently, so they go into this match as the statistical favorites.
Precisely. It's about using the data to inform our understanding of the probabilities and likelihoods, but always recognizing that in football, as in life, there are no guarantees.
Because at the end of the day, it's the beautiful game, and it wouldn't be nearly as much fun if we knew exactly how every match was going to play out right.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, as much as I enjoy geeking out about XG all day long, I know we need to wrap things up at some point.
Don't worry, you can indulge your inner data nerd with me anytime. But for our listeners who are eager to go forth and apply their newfound XG wisdom, what's one final thought we can leave them with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that XG, like any tool, is most powerful when it's used thoughtfully and in conjunction with other forms of knowledge and understanding. Don't be afraid to dive into the data, ask questions, and challenge your own assumptions about the game. And most importantly, have fun with it.
I love that. Embrace your inner XG guru, but never lose sight of the joy and passion that drew you to this beautiful sport in the first place.
Exactly.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up for today. A huge thank you to you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of XG. Hopefully, you've come away with a newfound appreciation for the power of this increasingly essential metric, as well as a healthy dose of skepticism about anyone who claims to have all the answers when it comes to predicting the beautiful game. Until next time, happy watching.